At 08:13 a.m. on May 9th, 1945, in a fog-blanketed field near the village of Marwitz, just outside Berlin, a distant hum rumbles on the horizon. The engines of British military trucks grow louder across the flattened landscape. Inside the camp, German women, POWs, huddle in cold, cramped barracks built from salvaged timber and corrugated iron. Their faces show fatigue. Their eyes flicker with disbelief at the rumours spreading through the compound, rumours that the British soldiers are nothing like what they expected. Lieutenant Anna Müller, her uniform draped loosely over her thinned frame, tightens her grip on the wooden bench. Her mind races with images of soldiers, men who were supposed to be hardened, disciplined, ruthless. The first truck pulls into the camp, and what emerges contradicts every propaganda poster she'd seen. One by one, the British soldiers begin to disembark, scrawny, weary, surprisingly young. Their faces are pale from months of fighting. One soldier locks eyes with Anna. She freezes. "Are these even real men?" she whispers. The rumbling grows quiet. The future unfolds. The cold air bites at Lieutenant Anna Müller's exposed hands as she steps from the barracks at 07:45 a.m. Her boots crunch against frozen earth, the sound sharp against the murmur of other women standing in a half circle. They share the same thought. The war's over, but their captivity continues. Anna surveys her fellow prisoners, a mix of older women who had served in the Reich's administrative workforce and younger ones swept up in the war's final chaos. Frau Dietrich, a former signals operator, stands with arms crossed. Greta, barely 19, shifts her weight nervously. The camp itself is makeshift, 3 long barracks arranged in a U-shape, surrounded by hastily strung barbed wire. The ground is churned mud, frozen now in the early morning. Her mind drifts to the rumours that have circulated for 2 days. British forces were coming to assume control, and they were meant to be different, humane even, but no one truly knew what to expect. The previous guards, a skeletal crew of elderly Volkssturm men, had departed yesterday without ceremony. The trucks arrive just as wind stirs the dirt at her feet. They are British, canvas-topped Bedford lorries, mud-caked and dented. She watches as the first soldiers climb down, their movements slow and groggy from exhaustion. They look impossibly young. Anna holds her breath as one of them, taller than the others, but clearly drained, turns and meets her gaze. His green eyes seem distant, yet filled with uncertainty. The expectation of invincible warriors collapses before her eyes. These men wear battle-dress blouses that hang loosely, webbing straps adjusted too tight or too loose, helmets tilted at awkward angles. One soldier stumbles slightly as he dismounts. Another lights a cigarette with shaking hands. The diesel exhaust mingles with the morning fog. Anna feels something shift inside her. Not relief exactly, but a strange recognition. These are not conquerors. They are survivors, just as she is. Sergeant James Jimmy Baker, an infantryman 3 months past his 20th birthday, shifts uncomfortably on the soft ground at 08:02 a.m. His uniform is mismatched, battle-dress trousers paired with a wool pullover issued in Holland, web belt from a supply dump in Belgium. The months of combat through Normandy's hedgerows, the Ardennes forests, and the Rhine crossings have left him hollowed out. His hands, when he looks at them, seem to belong to someone older. He had imagined what his first encounter with German POWs would be like during those long nights in foxholes. It was supposed to be a moment of validation, proof that the fighting had meaning, but when the prisoners are assembled in the compound's centre, their faces pale and hollow, his heart sinks. Among them stands Lieutenant Anna Müller, her brow furrowed, her eyes betraying disbelief. Her posture is rigid despite obvious fatigue. She expects an entirely different kind of soldier. Jimmy's stomach tightens as she steps forward. She's not like the women in the propaganda magazines distributed during training. Those images showed cowering civilians, grateful for liberation. But there's something in Anna's eyes that challenges him, and he falters. His corporal, Davies, mutters something about getting them organised. The commanding officer, Captain Thornhill, stands near the lead truck consulting a clipboard. Jimmy notices the women's uniforms are Wehrmacht auxiliary issue, some bearing clerical insignia, others from signals or administrative units. Not combatants, but not civilians either. The morning light is grey and flat. "What do we do now?" Jimmy mutters under his breath to Davies. His voice cracks from exhaustion and something else, uncertainty about what victory actually means when you're standing in the mud, looking at people who seem just as lost as you feel. The air is thick with tension at 8:25 a.m. Anna can feel the stares of the British soldiers penetrating the space between them. The way they stand, uncertain and exhausted, is jarring. She senses they don't fully grasp what anyone has been through. Jimmy Baker feels it too, the heavy silence, the palpable weight of countless lost lives pressing down on the moment. The war had ended 3 days ago with Germany's unconditional surrender, but the scars on all sides remain fresh. His commanding officer, Captain Thornhill, walks over, boots loud on the frozen dirt. "Get them sorted, Baker," Thornhill orders, his voice carrying the weariness of 2 years' continuous service. "We're to house them until further notice. Administrative staff will arrive tomorrow to begin processing." Anna flinches at the words. There's no triumph in the air, just quiet resignation. The women are herded toward the barracks they've already been occupying. The British soldiers follow, unsure of their new role as camp administrators rather than combat troops. The power dynamic has shifted, but the personal cost remains unspoken. Supply trucks begin unrolling wire and distributing ration tins. A field kitchen is being established near the camp's southern edge. As Anna passes Jimmy, she pauses. Their eyes meet. "Are you real men?" she asks in heavily accented English, her words barely audible. The question isn't mockery. It's genuine confusion mixed with exhaustion. Jimmy doesn't know how to respond. For the first time since landing at Normandy 11 months ago, he questions what that term even means. He thinks of the men from his platoon who didn't make it. Morrison, caught by an 88mm shell near Caen. Watkins, shot by a sniper in the Reichswald. Were they more real for dying? The question hangs between them, unanswered, as Anna continues toward the barracks. Inside the barracks at 10:30 a.m., the mood shifts from confusion to quiet hostility. Anna stands near the window, watching the soldiers' movements outside through glass clouded with condensation. Her breath fogs the pain as she observes Jimmy Baker talking to another soldier near the supply lorry. They're laughing about something, the sound carrying across the compound. He looks too young, too ordinary, to be a soldier who helped conquer the Reich. A voice interrupts her thoughts. "You think we lost to this?" Helga Schmidt, a former communications officer from Tempelhof, hisses as she walks past. "This is no victory. We have no dignity left." Her words carry the bitterness of collapse. Anna doesn't reply. She's too tired to argue. And what would be the point? The Reich is gone, the Führer dead in his bunker, Berlin a smoking ruin 20 kilometers east. Meanwhile, Jimmy crouches by a field stove the quartermaster has set up, trying to warm his frozen hands. He's deep in thought. Back home in Manchester, they'd told him he'd return a hero, part of the generation that rebuilt the world. His mother's letters, when they caught up with him, spoke of parades and celebrations. But what if Anna's words, and the truth in them, were right? What if they're just exhausted boys in ill-fitting uniforms? He thinks about the training at Aldershot, where instructors had drilled into them the image of the professional soldier, disciplined, fearless, capable. The reality of combat had stripped that image away piece by piece. Now, standing in this prison camp that feels more like a refugee assembly point, he wonders what he's actually accomplished. The tea in his canteen cup is lukewarm and oversteeped, but he drinks it anyway. By 02:15 p.m, Anna has gathered courage to speak again. The soldiers have settled into a routine, establishing control over the camp with disorienting gentleness. There are no beatings, no harsh commands, just bureaucratic efficiency. As she walks past the field kitchen where rations are being inventoried, Jimmy notices her. This time their gazes meet more purposefully. He's sorting through tins of corned beef, checking dates on the labels. "You're not what I expected," Anna says, stopping a few meters away. Her English is careful, practiced. Jimmy looks confused, setting down the tin he's holding. "What do you mean?" His accent is northern, working-class Manchester inflections that she struggles to pass. "The world thought you were invincible," she says, her voice low but clear. "The newsreels, the propaganda, they showed British soldiers as giants. But here, you're like us, just surviving." The observation isn't accusatory, just factual. Jimmy can't respond immediately. A deep pit forms in his stomach. What had he thought during training? That he was different from the people he fought against? That British soldiers possessed some inherent superiority that justified the war? He's not sure anymore. The certainties that carried him through Normandy and the Rhineland have evaporated in this muddy compound. "We're just doing what we're told," he finally says. It sounds weak even to his own ears. Anna nods slowly, as if this confirms something she suspected. She continues walking, leaving Jimmy standing among the ration tins. Corporal Davies approaches, asking about inventory counts, but Jimmy's mind is elsewhere. For months he'd focused on survival. The next hedge, the next village, the next river crossing. Now, with survival no longer in question, larger questions emerge that he's unprepared to answer. The day winds down toward 04 p.m, and Anna finds herself alone in the barracks' far corner. The quiet is almost oppressive after years of crowded quarters and constant activity. Other women rest on bunks or whisper among themselves. The soldiers, now integrated into the camp's rhythm, keep their distance but maintain visible presence. There's something in the way they look at the prisoners, not with hostility or desire, but with uncomfortable recognition. They see people who lost, which means they see a mirror of what they might have become. Finally, Anna speaks to the room at large, though no one asked. "We're all just people, aren't we? No matter who we're fighting for." The words hang in the cold air. It's not an apology, not an admission of guilt or innocence, but something closer to acknowledgement. Several women glance her way but don't respond. Jimmy overhears this from outside the barracks where he's been assigned guard duty. Not guarding against escape, where would they go? But maintaining some semblance of military order. His rifle rests against the wall, unnecessary in this context. They are two pieces in a war-torn puzzle, both trying to find meaning amid chaos that has finally gone quiet. The afternoon light slants through the compound, casting long shadows across the mud. In the distance, Jimmy can hear the rumble of vehicles on the main road, the massive machinery of occupation moving into position across defeated Germany. Supply convoys, administrative units, military government detachments. The war has ended, but armies don't simply vanish. Key thinks about Anna's observation. People, just people. It should be obvious, but 11 months of combat had trained him to think in terms of enemies and allies, threats and objectives. The transition to thinking in terms of humanity, again, feels like learning a forgotten language. The evening meal is shared in tense silence at 07:45 p.m. in the mess hall, a converted storage building with trestle tables. Anna is seated among the other prisoners on one side, while the soldiers occupy tables on the opposite side. The division is unspoken but absolute. British Army rations are distributed equally: tinned stew, hardtack biscuits, tea, more food than the women have seen in months. The contrast with late-war German rations is stark. Anna eats slowly, savouring each bite despite the metallic taste of preserved meat. Conversations are sparse, limited to necessary requests for salt or water. The tension in the air is palpable, built from layers of recent history that can't be addressed directly. The clink of spoons against tin plates is the only steady sound filling the space. Occasionally a chair scrapes. Someone coughs. Anna's eyes flicker toward Jimmy once more across the room. He's eating mechanically, not tasting the food, just consuming fuel. She can't help but feel a sense of connection forming, though she's uncertain what it means or where it might lead. They're bound together by circumstance in this liminal space between war and whatever comes next. Captain Thornhill stands briefly to announce that additional supplies will arrive tomorrow, that proper documentation procedures will begin within 48 hours. His words are administrative, empty of emotion. After the meal, the prisoners are escorted back to their barracks while soldiers prepare for night watch rotations. The sky has turned dark purple in the west. Spring nights still carry winter's chill. Anna pulls her thin coat tighter as she crosses the compound. Someone has lit lamps in the barracks windows, a small gesture of normalcy. Tomorrow will bring new uncertainties, but tonight there's food, shelter, and the strange comfort of structured captivity. At 10 p.m, a radio crackles to life in the command tent. The room falls silent immediately. Captain Thornhill hunches over the wireless set, adjusting frequencies. Static gives way to a voice transmitting orders from divisional headquarters. Jimmy, summoned as duty NCO, stands at attention. The commanding officer's face tightens as he listens. When the transmission ends, Thornhill sits back heavily. Soviet forces are consolidating positions along the Elbe, he says to the assembled NCOs. Our orders are to prepare for possible redeployment eastward. Garrison duty may be shortened. The words carry implications that ripple through Jimmy's understanding. They might leave within days or weeks, transferred to positions along the new boundary between occupation zones. For Anna, lying awake in her bunk, the weight of reality sets in differently. She can hear the radio's faint sound through the barracks wall, can sense the shift in the camp's atmosphere. This isn't the end of uncertainty. It's only the beginning of a new phase. Where will they be sent? What documentation will they need? Will families be reunited or scattered? The questions multiply in the darkness. The other women sleep restlessly around her, shifting on thin mattresses, murmuring occasionally. Outside, the guards' footsteps crunch at regular intervals. For Jimmy, the battle he thought he'd won feels hollow. 11 months of combat concluded not with dramatic victory, but with administrative processing in a muddy compound. The grand narratives of newsreels and official histories feel distant from this reality. He thinks about his father, who served in the previous war and returned silent about his experiences. Jimmy is beginning to understand why. The truth is too complicated, too filled with ambiguity, to fit comfortable stories of heroism and villainy. The night deepens. Both Anna and Jimmy lie awake in separate spaces, contemplating futures neither can predict. It's 12:30 a.m. when Anna finds herself unable to sleep, moving quietly through the compound toward the watchtower on the eastern perimeter. The guard, a young private named Collins, notices her but doesn't challenge her approach. The informal protocols of this camp have already diverged from military regulation. Below, British soldiers move like shadows between buildings, maintaining security against threats that seem increasingly theoretical. The shooting war is over. What remains is administrative occupation. She feels tension growing inside her, a combination of fear, frustration, and something else she can't quite identify. She hadn't signed up for any of this. None of them had. Her original assignment was clerical work at an administrative center in Berlin, processing supply requisitions. The war's escalation had pulled her into military service, into uniform, into this sequence of events that led to imprisonment. But as the wind howls across the flat landscape, something in her breaks. Not collapse, but recognition. She's not just a prisoner defined by wartime designation. She's a human being with agency, even if that agency is currently limited. And so are the soldiers guarding her. This obvious truth feels somehow revolutionary after years of propaganda that reduced everyone to categories and roles. The night sky is clear now, stars visible without the smoke that had obscured them for years. She can see the constellation Ursa Major low on the northern horizon. Her father taught her the constellations when she was young, before politics and war consumed everything. The memory surfaces unexpectedly, bringing brief comfort. In the tower, Collins shifts his weight and lights a cigarette. The small orange glow is the only warm light visible. Anna descends eventually, returning to the barracks. The insight doesn't solve anything, doesn't erase the past or clarify the future, but it shifts something internal, creates space for whatever comes next. Jimmy, too, feels the weight of existence pressing against him at 02 a.m. He stands by the field stove again, though the fire has burned down to embers. This time it's not for warmth, but for clarity that refuses to arrive. Anna's words from earlier have burrowed into him like shrapnel, impossible to extract. "You're not who we expected," she had said. The observation contained no malice, just recognition of a gap between image and reality. Maybe it's true. Maybe the person he imagined becoming when he enlisted at 18 no longer exists, replaced by this exhausted man who questions simple certainties. He thinks about the training lectures emphasizing British military tradition, discipline and superiority. Those lectures seemed believable then, necessary frameworks for making sense of war's chaos. Now they feel like stories told to children, useful fictions that dissolve on contact with actual experience. The men he served beside were ordinary. Factory workers, clerks, farm labourers who wore uniforms and followed orders because the alternative was unthinkable. Some were brave, some cowardly, most were both depending on circumstances. The categories that propaganda depended on, hero, villain, victor, defeated, mapped poorly onto the complicated humans he'd encountered. Davies approaches, offering a cigarette. Jimmy accepts, though he's never particularly enjoyed smoking. They stand together in silence, two exhausted men avoiding sleep, because sleep brings dreams neither wants. "Think we'll be here long?" Davies asks. Jimmy shrugs. "Orders said prepare for possible movement. Could be days, could be months." The uncertainty is exhausting in its own way. After years of combat's terrible clarity, survive this engagement, reach that objective, the ambiguity of occupation feels disorienting. The cigarette burns down. Jimmy flicks it away. Dawn is still hours away, but he can feel the night beginning its slow turn toward morning. At 04:00 a.m., the British trucks are already lined up near the compound gate, engines idling in the pre-dawn darkness. The prisoners are being transported to another facility, a larger camp near Hanover where comprehensive documentation and processing will occur. The order came through at 03:15 a.m., sudden and final. Captain Thornhill roused the NCOs to organize the movement. The women assemble in the compound's center, carrying what few possessions they have. Anna clutches a small cloth bag containing letters, a photograph, and her identification papers. The morning is cold and damp. Mist hangs close to the ground, reducing visibility to a few dozen meters. She catches Jimmy's eye one last time across the compound. There's no time left for words, no opportunity for the conversation that might have provided closure or understanding. He's helping guide prisoners toward the trucks, ensuring everyone is accounted for on the manifests. His face shows the same exhaustion it's shown for days, but something else too. Recognition, perhaps, or regret at questions that will remain unanswered. Anna boards the truck with the others, finding space on the wooden bench running along the interior. The canvas sides are rolled down against the morning chill. Helga sits beside her, silent now. The war is over, but their shared uncertainty continues. Will there be trials, indefinite detention, release procedures that might take months or years? No one knows. Through the gap in the canvas, Anna watches Jimmy standing at attention as Captain Thornhill conducts a final count. Then Thornhill signals the driver and the trucks begin rolling forward. The camp that held them for 2 days recedes into the mist. Jimmy watches until the convoy disappears completely, then turns back to the suddenly empty compound. Their unit will remain here another 3 days before receiving new orders. The barracks are quiet now, strangely so after human occupation. Anna boards the truck with the others at 6 a.m. as grey light breaks across the eastern horizon. Her mind is a jumble of thoughts without clear resolution. The convoy moves slowly along roads, cratered by artillery and clogged with refugee traffic. Civilians trudge westward, carrying suitcases and bundles, fleeing the Soviet occupation zone. German military vehicles sit abandoned in ditches, stripped of useful parts. The landscape bears war's scars, burned farms, cratered fields, villages reduced to rubble. As the truck moves toward Hanover, Anna feels the lingering weight of the brief confrontation at Marwitz. She has no answers, only more questions about identity and agency, about what comes next for women who served the wrong side of history. The other prisoners are silent, lost in private calculations. Greta, the youngest, weeps quietly. Frau Dietrich stares straight ahead with the blank expression of someone who's stopped trying to predict the future. The journey will take most of the day, following circuitous routes around destroyed bridges and blocked roads. Anna thinks about Jimmy's face in that final moment, the uncertainty she saw there mirroring her own. Were they ever truly enemies in any meaningful sense? Or were they simply people caught in circumstances neither chose, performing roles assigned by distant leaders whose decisions destroyed millions of lives? The truck hits a pothole, jostling everyone roughly. Someone curses. The convoy continues. At mid-morning they stop for water and brief rest. British soldiers distribute rations and allow prisoners to stretch their legs under guard. The sun has burned through the morning mist, revealing a spring day that seems obscenely normal, given everything that's happened. Birds sing in the surviving trees. Wildflowers bloom in the ditches. The natural world continues its cycles, indifferent to human catastrophe. Anna climbs back into the truck for the journey's second half, watching the landscape roll past through the canvas opening. The camp at Marwitz fades into the distance as Anna's convoy moves west at 08 a.m. From her position in the truck, she watches the flat landscape of Brandenburg give way gradually to Lower Saxony's rolling terrain. For Anna and for Jimmy still standing in the compound they left behind, the question lingers without resolution. Were they ever truly enemies? Or were they simply human beings trapped in war's machinery, assigned opposing roles in a conflict that consumed everything? Jimmy's unit will depart Marwitz in 3 days, reassigned to garrison duty in Bremen. He'll serve another 7 months in Germany before demobilization in December 1945, returning to Manchester and civilian life. Anna will spend 4 months in the Hanover processing camp, undergoing denazification procedures before release in September. She'll return to Berlin and find work as a translator for American occupation authorities. They'll never see each other again, never know what became of the other. Their brief intersection at Marwitz will fade into memory, one small episode in lives shaped by war's chaos. Yet something of that encounter will persist. For Jimmy, it will manifest as skepticism towards simple narratives of victory and defeat, a tendency to question official versions of events. For Anna, it will become a cautious hope that understanding between former enemies might be possible, that identities assigned by war don't have to define post-war existence. In the end, there are no clear answers or satisfying conclusions, just the quiet truth of survival and the recognition, hard-won, that people remain people regardless of the uniforms they wear or the flags they serve. The trucks continue their journey. The compound at Marwitz stands empty briefly before being repurposed for other administrative needs, and the archive records nothing of the brief conversation between a German lieutenant and a British sergeant, nothing of the questions raised and left unanswered. Only the facts, dates, locations, troop movements, processing procedures. The human truth exists in the gaps between official records.